Hi everyone, and welcome to the fourth chapter of the online lecture, which involves the identification of subordinate skills and entry behaviors. The purpose of this chapter is to really look at trying to figure out and finding the right amount of skills that the learner needs to have coming to the table. And you're going to identify these subordinate skills because you need to know which skills you need to include in the instruction or you don't. If you don't include the skills, then the instruction may be ineffective, and the student won't get what is necessary. But if you put too many subordinate skills in, the lesson will become too long, the module will become too long, and it may not be effective. So we're in the little conduct instructional analysis phase, as highlighted in the gray there, and that's sort of where we're at in this chapter. So this is the fourth chapter here, and by the end of this, you should be able to put together your first assignment um, by going through chapters 1 through 3 and then being prepped for chapter 4. So we kind of go through a hierarchical approach. In you gotta kind of ask, what do the students already know? As Gagné says, what must the student already know so that with a minimum amount of instruction, this task can be mastered? So if you're trying to get to the goal, what steps do you need to have? So what is it that the student must already know do, that the absence of which would make it impossible to learn without these subordinate skills? Asking this will help identify one or more of the subordinate skills. This type of analysis can be challenging, though, because we don't think about instruction along this hierarchical line. So you got to really sit down and think about it several times probably, and look at all the possible variables, look at all the possible steps, um, stumbling points, whatever it may be that you have when you're designing the instruction. The procedural analysis is used when there's additional steps. These can be mental or physical steps. And pretty much as you can see in the flow below, the subordinate steps are listed, and sub-steps are placed there too. So steps 1 through or 5, goals 1 through 5, are the original ones. 2.1, let's say, substep 2.1, 2.2, 2.3 are subordinate steps. That's what we're sort of looking at today. Cluster analysis is used with verbal information. It's the best way to identify the major categories of verbal information goals. So think, I guess you could say, think state capitals. State capitals could be clustered by regions, or football teams by divisions. Those would be kind of verbal information that is broken down by cluster analysis. Attitudinal goals, what the learner must do when exhibiting this attitude. To answer this question, you would first consider the psychomotor skills or the intellectual skills. What do you want the learner to do with this psychomotor or intellectual skills? If you want the learner to choose to do something, then like maybe to go run, then it would be necessary to teach the person how to jog, perhaps. So you have to, maybe not, maybe it's not one thing that you have to identify. The second question is usually the verbal stuff, like what they should be doing there. But the attitudinal goals is why should they change their behavior? So how does this look? The attitudinal goal is placed in a box next to the psychomotor or intellectual goal, as depicted there. So the motor skill or intellectual skill. As I'm looking at this now, the box on the right should say attitudinal goal. I apologize. So motor or intellectual skill on the left, attitudinal on the right. Verbal information, this is indicated by this triangle with the V. This indicates that verbal information is used to support the intellectual skill in the box next to it. And then we have the entry behaviors. Entry behaviors are behaviors that the learner knows or can do before they begin instruction. Typically what you see when you're diagramming this is that it's represented by a dotted line. The skills below the dotted line are the entry behaviors, and the skills above are depicted by the aspects above.
When you're determining the entry behaviors, you really need to ask yourself ahead of time if the learner needs to be tested on whatever the skill may be prior to the instruction.
Because you want to be careful about the assumptions you make about what a learner can or cannot do. You don't want to assume that they have a skill but that they don't, or they have more of the skill than you assume that they did. So it's just a matter of working with the subject matter expert on this. To wrap this up, let's just recap your assignments. And I'm not sure when you're viewing this, yeah, and hopefully it's sooner than later. You should be in the midst of your project proposal and goal analysis, which is a two-part assignment that will count as assignment one. So two parts to this one. Now the project proposal was due or is due on week 3, and that's basically where you're coming up with a goal statement. You're telling me what you're going to do and looking at what is and what should be in your environment. There is a template and an example that I put together in Moodle. So look up A1 example to get an idea of what you should be putting together. For each of these assignments, I've given you some guidance in the structure, just so you have an idea of what you're putting together and how it should look, a general format. So the syllabus is a good go-to spot, as are the examples and templates that I provide in Moodle. This first assignment should be go along pretty well with chapters 1, 2, and 3. And the project proposal is due on week 3, and then your goal analysis, it's more of a visual, is week 5. And you look at the example that I've provided just as some help here. Now, just a little housekeeping. When you're submitting your work, if you could just follow the convention, the example that I have below, just put A1 for assignment 1, your name, and the assignment name, and that'll just help organize it a little bit for me, and I'd appreciate it. So if you have any questions along the way, please ask, and I'll see you next time.